Hey, Cam Edwards here at CPAC 2020 with my friend Rob O'Donnell from Brothers Before Others and a CPAC panelist for the very first time this year. Congratulations.
Thank you, yeah.
So what are you going to be talking about, and what's your panel all about here
Because
at CPAC?
Trump, how the left justifies violence. It's with Andy No and a couple other individuals, talking about how the left has become violent, in the streets of America, and how they've been emboldened to do that and allowed to do that with the police.
It really is amazing that you see the headlines and then they just disappear. The stories fade away, right? So it's not that there's no media coverage, but there's no media outrage. And this is an industry that frankly survives and thrives on outrage, on generating outrage. But when somebody plows their car into a group of Trump supporters, or somebody, punches a Trump supporter for wearing a hat, it's noted, and then the media just looks away as quickly as they can.
And no doubt. I mean, and this is set up by design. These progressive mayors are hiring like-minded progressive police chiefs who are instituting progressive policies where they're not necessarily giving stand-down orders, because that'll be their go-to. Well, I never ordered a stand-down. You didn't have to. Your policies have already done that. So, the police are left, the rank and file that are out there that want to do their job are left to basically be hands-off. Because the second they do put their hands on someone, you'll see the media all over that. Mm-hmm. And it's allowed them to attack journalists. It's allowed Antifa to attack, people they disagree with. Here's individuals that are going out to fight. It's the only reason they're there. Yeah. They're wearing helmets, they're bringing weapons, they're out there to fight. And it's when the media steps up and starts actually addressing that. It's when the public starts supporting the rank and file police so they can take that extra step. Right now you have the public, especially in areas like Portland and stuff, demonizing the police. Why wouldn't they just stand down? Because that's what they want.
Right.
Because the second they go hands-on, there'll be 100 media outlets covering it 24/7, showing, oh, look at the abuse of police. We just came here to practice our First Amendment rights. No, you went there to start a fight. Yeah. That's what they do.
And I think we've even seen this, certainly I think it's been amplified during the Trump administration, but I remember the riots in Baltimore and the mayor talking about giving the rioters space to riot, basically. Yeah. And that was sort of that first light bulb moment of, what are you doing? You're going to encourage more of this. If there are no repercussions for these types of activities, well, guess what happens? This becomes the norm.
That should have been the test case, because she actually did give a stand-down order. Even though she had the policies in place, she went on TV and said, hey, we're going to let them allow their space. And then eventually had to go in and take the streets back, because we saw what happened. How is this not a test case for the rest of the nation to say this is what not to do?
Right.
When people show up with violent intent, you address them. And the police needs to do that. But you have these progressive mayors hiring progressive police chiefs who want to instill these progressive policies, and the rank and file are left, what am I supposed to do? It's till lawsuits start taking place where we start deposing these rank and file police officers. You saw a journalist being assaulted across the street from you. There were 5 police officers there. Why didn't you do anything? Under deposition, and let them say, because we were instructed not to.
Yeah.
That's how you go after and start the lawsuits against the city. Because if the police did put their hands on someone, the left is going to initiate 50 lawsuits tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely right. Now, listen, this is a half serious, half flippant suggestion, but back in the old days, I remember like the police athletic leagues, right? And a lot of times it take, kids who had maybe a little too much aggression, they try to channel that. We're going to get you into like the Gold Gloves boxing. I think we need a political MMA, Rob. So if you're a lefty socialist and you want to, crack some skulls, get into a ring with somebody on the right who also wants to beat up a socialist. And let's have this, maybe refereed or officiated by members of law enforcement. You can get out your aggression. You can channel it maybe a little bit more productively. Maybe you can, raise some money via pay-per-view, and that can go to the charity of your choice. We have these two sides that really do despise one another. Why not? Why not provide an opportunity for them to, again, under supervision with some sort of rules, get into a ring and try to knock each other on the, the blocks off?
Yeah, well, I agree with the premise of that, but what would happen is the left are cowards. They're not going to take you head on. They would smear you on social media before the fight. They wouldn't show up to the fight, and then they would call you a bully after the fight on social media and pull your job and try and get you fired. So, that's where that would go.
Darn it. All right, you're such a realist, but I appreciate you bringing me back down to earth. Let's talk real quick, too, about about some of what you're seeing from Democrats pushing a very, very anti-gun campaign message right now. I mean, there is no pro-gun Democrat running for president. There are a few pro-gun Democrat politicians around the country. I wish that there were more of them. But right now, I mean, this is one of the two major political parties has really decided that you and I and the American people don't have a right to keep and bear arms. It's a privilege that they want to dole out to their friends and people who can afford it. But as a law enforcement officer, I mean, what is your take on where they want to take us?
This last debate highlighted that tremendously. Look at Bloomberg on stage saying he bought every town in mom's demand to push these agendas. So it is very wealthy individuals that are supporting this financially, where these progressive mayors and governors are taking this hold and trying to use the momentum of any tragedy in America, and that's what they are. They're tragedies committed by criminals, and they're taking that before the facts are even out there. Most of these guns are stolen. Most of these guns are obtained illegally. That they're using to go after a constitutional right. To compare it with driver's licenses. Well, you have to have your car registered, insured, you get a license to use it. Well, show me in the Constitution where it says something about driving. It just doesn't. And I came full circle. In New York, being a young cop, there were only three types of people who carried guns in the city of New York, and the state of New York for that matter. You had your police officers, your good guys, you had your bad guys, and then you had very wealthy who could navigate the permit process to get firearms permits. Mm-hmm. And they were usually, very easy to identify because they're wealthy individuals, dressed wealthy and dressed that way and carried themselves that way, where it was easy to pick the good guys from the bad guys. And having that firearm myself for that young age, you take that for granted. And then retiring and moving to rural Pennsylvania, well, this isn't a right just left for police officers, those privileged enough to be able to navigate that process. This is your God-given right. This is your constitutional right. And they have just as much right to carry that firearm and protect themselves and their family as I always had. And I saw that firsthand, and it really hit me when I moved to rural Pennsylvania because I took that for granted. Right. Because I was one of the privileged. I was a law enforcement officer that always had that gun. Yeah. Was always able to protect myself and my family. And there's times I did. I made a robbery arrest with my son picking him up from daycare because next to the daycare there was a supermarket where someone just robbed. And I took him down at gunpoint. Got in a lot of trouble from my wife when it hit the news that night because we didn't tell her anything, but when she saw the news and saw me and my son on the news for making that arrest, I got a lot of flack for that. But any God-given citizen in this country that's lawfully able to carry a gun should be able to do something like that. And we need more people like that to stop these mass shootings, to stop that robbery in a grocery store, to stop themselves being attacked or a victim.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, listen, man, I appreciate you spending some time on this. I want to ask about Brothers Before Others real quick before we run out of time here. It's a fantastic organization for law enforcement, really by law enforcement, but there are ways that the general public can help support this mission, right?
Sure. BrothersBeforeOthers.org or at BBO Inc. 14 on Twitter. We do have avenues that they could donate and support. We send flowers to every line of duty death in the country. We've done children's hospital visits. We picked it in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. We picked underprivileged school system, one of the poorest school districts in Pennsylvania, and did a Christmas for their elementary school, their pre-K. And the superintendent of the school came to us afterwards, and we enjoyed the time there. We took it for granted. We got a gift for every age-appropriate child. We had snacks for them. We had dressed up as characters. But the superintendent told us, these are probably the only gifts these kids are going to get this Christmas because, where the homes they're coming from. And it really hit home. We're giving back to the community. We're moving our headquarters to Phillipsburg, so we wanted to do something there and let the community know who we were, and the outpouring from the community. And this is just everyday citizens. The notes from the parents, the teachers who saw this. It was like, I can't believe you guys did this. And, it's all funded by our membership and the support we have. So any outside support is welcome, but we do raise most of our funds through police officers who give $20 and $50 here and there.
That is tremendous. Rob, listen, man, thanks so much. It's so good to get a chance to see you today, and look forward to talking again very soon.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Rob O'Donnell with Brothers Before Others joining us here on Bearing Arms, Cam & Company from CPAC 2020.